Let's take a look at how to use the CTA tool in HubSpot. A CTA, like a pop-up or a banner, slide in, is a great way to get some quick wins when it comes to lead conversion on your website. It can be a well-timed pop-up that turns your visitors into loyal subscribers to your monthly content newsletter or some other type of ongoing email that you have through HubSpot. I've navigated to the CTA tool, which is under the marketing menu over here to the left under CTAs. Let's go ahead and choose the pop-up tool. That's one of our favorite forms of creating a CTA for the website. So when you come to the pop-up tool, it's really fairly straightforward. You can use a template and then you can customize that template. You can add different elements to your call to action. You have your countdown timer. You could even have a meeting scheduler. You can customize it by using any kind of text you want to put in there. Over here, you can see it's drag and drop. You can add an image. You can add text here, add a button. And so let's look at what we would do to create a CTA for an email subscription, for example. So that's the beauty of the pop-up CTA is that you can add a form as well. So let's say we wanted to add a form here. I dragged out the form module, and once I click on that, I can go ahead and add a form. I don't see one in my demo account here for a newsletter subscription. So what we can do is go ahead and create a new one. So if you haven't created your form yet, you can do so here. This one's going to be email subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and create that, and I can create my form right here within the pop-up tool. Now, my form will still be a separate entity in the form tool that I can always go and edit it there. But this gives me a way to just quickly get that form named and created so that I can start using it in my CTA. Under actions, I can go to the full forms editor, which is what I was just mentioning, and go ahead. And so if I did that, it's going to open a new window. It's going to allow me to work with this form in the full form editor if I so choose to. But I can also still work with this form here. So I went ahead and created a new form. I'm just going to do the email for now. I'm going to keep it really simple. In fact, the email subscribe form is one of the ways that you can quickly get a person to raise their hand and say, yeah, you know what, I think I do have interest in this organization, in this brand. And so I think I will go ahead and just drop my emails. Having just the email field, for example, is one way to get some lead conversion without having a lot of friction, without having to ask a lot of questions. Later on, we always want to lead into asking questions because we want to know who it is that is converting on our website. We want to know if they are a good fit for our brand. We will eventually ask more questions, but for something that's a first time conversion for a visitor that's just showing interest, you can always just use the email address. Perhaps a first name, you can do that as well. So let's say I wanted to add a first name, I would go ahead and pick first name, which is a default HubSpot field. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Free to choose whether I want to make it required. If I want to reduce friction, I can make it not required. The email sign up, again, is something we see as a good way to start to get engagement without a visitor or prospect having to make a big commitment. So they're opting into something to learn more. And that's why the email newsletter is a great way to get more traction on your website for conversion and why we're using it in this example. So let's name our pop-up. We're going to call this email subscribe. Let's say your brand sends out a monthly, traditionally we've called it a newsletter, but nowadays we could call it a content email, something that offers value once a month to your subscribers. So we'll call it content email subscribe. Now for my forward public facing CTA, I can go ahead and type in any copy that makes sense here. So I'll just say subscribe today, for example. And a brief description is always great when you're putting out something like an email subscribe. It's better to describe what kind of value your subscriber is going to get in this newsletter for content email, for example. So describe what it is that they're going to get, not just that they're going to get an email in their inbox, but what value are you offering them in there? I'm going to copy and paste some copy that I have already typed out. Here's actionable marketing insights straight to your inbox. No fluff, just results. Let's do that as an example. It's nice and short, it's not too long, and because we know that website visitors and searchers these days have perhaps not the longest attention spans. The idea is to try to get your value in there very simply in a way that folks can read it pretty quickly and get to the point. Here's my form. Now, there's a lot of customization you can do. You can style your CTA, you can do different fonts, colors, all of that good stuff. You can highly customize your CTA, and I would recommend doing it in a way that aligns with your brand. So if you have a brand style guide, if you have colors, you have certain fonts that you're already using on your website, it's good to stick to that. It's good to make sure that is the same look and feel of your website. This is something that helps improve the trust of your visitor so that it doesn't look like just a spam pop-up call to action. Speaking of earning trust, that's where you have some other settings in here that help you target. You can even target certain types of visitors. You can filter those visitors based on segmented lists. A logged in visitor, for example, which is a little bit more advanced, say you have some kind of membership or something like that. There's a whole list here of different ways that you can show certain visitors certain calls to action when they come to your site. There's really so much potential with calls to action on your website, whether they're pop-ups, whether they're slide-ins or banners, other ways that you can make sure you're aligning with your visitor's journey. You're not spamming them, so to speak, or really bothering them at the wrong time or in the wrong place is by using different triggers. So you can trigger on different actions like exit intent. For example, if your visitor goes up and starts to close their window, you can trigger the pop-up to show then. You can trigger when they scroll a certain percentage down the page. You can trigger after a certain elapsed time or after some inactivity. Click is when the visitor clicks on a button on any page, it will display this CTA. So you can do that as well, where you don't necessarily have to wait until a certain inactivity or percentage of scroll. You can have a button on a page that just says simply click here, and then the pop-up will come up. So you can actually make it user-generated pop-up where the user triggers the pop-up themselves by taking an action by clicking a button, then they get the pop-up. That's a way to give your user even more control. For example, you can have a blurb on a page that talks about your email subscription. And then if the visitor wants to keep going with that, they can click on a button and then get that pop-up with that form in it so that all they have to do is enter their email address in the pop-up and then they're good to go. Another good way to target as well is to only show it on certain pages, or you could take the reverse thinking and say, don't show on certain pages. For example, if you have a landing page that already has something you are driving your visitor to do, say download an ebook or some other action that you are trying to engage them through to fill out a different form, then you really don't want that pop-up to show up there as well, because that'll be confusing and it'll cause some friction and maybe annoyance as to what do they want me to do here. So in that way, you can filter out where you don't want your CTA to show and show it only on certain pages that make sense for where that visitor might be in their journey. You could either use it as an exclusion, and maybe there are just a few pages you don't want to show it on, or you can go the other way and only show it on certain pages. There's really a lot you can do with the pop-up CTA where you can include a form and help your brand grow your list by giving your visitor an opportunity to convert on your website at just the right place and at just the right time. Let's adjust our a little bit to make it look a little bit better, huh? Not so boring white background, all of that. Okay, so I deleted my extra button that was there. Now I think I want to do something about this background. Let's go to design. There we go. And it's white right now. So that's another option is you can place an image in the background of the whole CTA and mute it a little bit. For this one, I think I'm going to go here and click on gradient. I love having fun with gradients. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's see here. So I'm just going to do something fairly quickly. So I'm going to pick my two colors. Yeah, I'll pick, how about a purple and a pink since the woman has pink in her blouse there. So let's try that. I'm going to go up here and mute back my purple as well. That's looking like something a little more interesting. Now I've got the more muted purple on the top and my dark text is getting a little lost. So I think I'm going to update that. And when I click on the text, you'll see up here, I have my editing bar here to format my text. So I'm going to make this into reverse text. I'm going to update my font. Let's try this one. Good enough for now. Let's try making that the same font. And I'm going to go ahead and make this one also reverse out over the little bit darker background. Now, what if I want my email label to match up with the rest of this text? So I'm going to click into my form module here, and you'll see here you have your styles. Now my email label matches my reversed out text up here. So that's what I wanted. Next up is this button. I'm not sure if I like the orange or the purple. If you have your branding in HubSpot, that's really what should lead the design process here, is what your actual branding colors are. And often for something like a CTA, you'll have a set of secondary colors that you can use just so that you're not maybe using the same two colors over and over again. But hopefully from your style guide, you'll have a set of secondary colors that you can use to mix things up a little bit, but still be aligned with your brand. Since this is a demo, I'm having a little bit more fun with it and I'm making up the colors as I go along. So to get our button changed over here so that we can create something that goes with our purple pink theme, I'm in the form module here. You'll see over here it says form. That means I'm working with the form module. I've got my content tab and then styles, and that's what I want to click on is styles. I could even change this to be more rounded situation with both my field and button. And then I can also change the font here. I'll make it match the font in the rest of my CTA. Now, if I had a help text in here that says something like, just type your email here, that's what that would be. I do not have any help text set up in this particular form. That's why it's not there. Or if I had placeholder text like johndoe@hotmail.com, that would be that color. But what I'm really focused on right now is I just want my button to be a different color. Maybe we'll try a blue. That looks good. It's contrasting with some of the warmer colors of pink and purple. There's also that background in there. I could always try going for that, where it's sort of a like salmon-y color. And that's where I can go to advanced and try out the color scale and see if I can find something that works to go with that background. So that usually takes a little bit more noodling around. Now I'm getting even more into the pink. So why don't I go with that? I'll just do a little like light pink. Now we've got some monochromatic situations going on here, but for fun, we'll just leave it at that. And we have our label. And then if I wanted to change the alignment of the button, I could do so here too with the alignment icons there. Also, let's bump up this font a little bit. So there we go. That is ways that you can customize your CTA pop-up and make it look a little snazzier for your audience. We haven't yet talked about options. So let's go to the options tab. You can actually turn this off on small screens, in which case you may want to think about other options for what you might want to do on small screens. If it's important for you to have something on those pages, you may want to have an alternative way for folks to subscribe when they're on a mobile device. That's a more advanced thing, but just know that you can turn this off if you want to. You can add this call to action to a marketing campaign. So that's where you would choose that here. You can do some other tracking and options under this tab as well. If this is a temporary type of, let's say you're promoting an event or you're promoting some sort of appeal that's, say, Giving Tuesday or something like that, you can do it this way as well, where you are able to automate when you publish it and when you want it to stop showing up as well. There are so many options with the HubSpot calls to action in general, but specifically here with the pop-up, it's just really a great tool with lots of versatility. The last thing I wanted to go over is what happens after the visitor puts their email address and hits that submit button. You get to decide what happens after that. This is your whole thank you panel. Just click on that and you're going to have all your options for what you want to do. Once the visitor pushes the submit button, what happens? You can either display a thank you message, which you can customize right here in this field. You can have this go to another page. Perhaps there's a thank you page that has secondary call to action on it. That all depends on your prospect's journey and what you want to direct them to next. You don't want to create too much friction or annoy your visitor with asking for too many things. But if it makes sense in their buyer journey for you to take them to another page, it just also depends on what the actual call to action is. You can just direct to a different URL altogether. Perhaps you have a page that you want to lead them to on your website that's not in HubSpot. That's where you might use the link to a URL. So you have all of those settings available to you here in the call to action tool for a pop-up call to action in HubSpot.